Those certainly were fine gifts that the coach bestowed upon Sports Talk, but perhaps the greatest gift of all was the one he gave to Sports Talk listeners and Gator fans everywhere, the gift of the swamp.
'Twas the night before Christmas, and all through the swamp the ball yard was silent, not one gator chomped. The scoreboard was dark, and the press box was bare, except for some old peanut hulls Buddy Martin had left there. But up in my office a candle still burned. See, $2 million ain't easily earned, and I was about to head home for this divine holiday. If I could only perfect one more fancy ball play. When out on the turf there arose such a clatter, I sprang from the chalkboard to see what was the matter, and there he was at midfield, like Phil Fulmer, but fatter. I squinted my eyes as I peered through the fog. Is that really a sleigh, or did I drink rancid eggnog? The reindeer looked tired, and the landing was rough, but I reckon that old boy looked jolly enough. He hopped from his sleigh, and he moseyed on over while his reindeer were grazing like cows in the clover. The ground shook as he walked, and I said, "Holy moly, son, you'd better have clearance from Jeremy Foley, 'cause there's no turning back when our police start sniffing. Shoot them boys would handcuff old Ben Hill Griffin if he dared trespass on this here sacred ground, much less had his livestock all around." He said, "I'm not staying, but I've just come to say that I have nothing to hand you, no gifts from my sleigh." Well, I accepted my fate, and the blame I'd not share, but for all other Gators this was surely unfair. Would there be no reward for their high expectations, no SEC titles, no Orange Bowl vacations, no present to open that'll give them a reason to hold on to their faith through this lonely off-season? The fat man stood silent and let out a laugh that woke up Harry Christians for a mile and a half. He yanked off his earphones and threw down his hat with more flair and more power than I'd ever done that. He cleared his big throat, and in that exact same way he said, "Here come the Gators," like that old boy does on game day, and that summoned the spirits of 1,000 big plays that were born on this field and still live in that haze. Oh, it shook me up now, I'll make that confession. When I first laid eyes on this dreamlike procession, the swamp was transformed through the fog and the night. Each scene was bathed in a heavenly light. There was Emmett and Eric and old Jimmy Dew, Fred Taylor and Durrance and Tony Green too. I saw Reeves to Alvarez, Nat Moore and Natil, Collinsworth, Mastioka, Sammy Green and Wayne Fields. There's a healthy Scott Brantley at full speed, not just partial. How'd we ever lose a game when we had Wilbur Marshall? The contact was real, the intensity scary. Lawrence Wright was never a sugar plum fairy. There were all sorts of Gaffneys, Wes Chandler, John L. 2-point conversion from a walk-on named Bell. There was Shane in the shotgun, whose touch was uncanny. There was Kynes and Peace, and there'll always be Danny. I wanted to jump in there, but would not interrupt, for there on the sideline, Ray Graves coached him up. And there's a snap and a hold, and I kicked at my best. It's 1966. Well, you know the rest. The fat man then laughed when he saw me convinced, then sped up the action as it recommenced. And the noise exploded from that moment divine when 000s proclaimed it was 14-9. I tried to see everything, but it wasn't easy. There's a long, tight spiral from Dunk Johnson to Queasy. And he finished the show with a standing room crowd of young and old Gators with colors worn proud. The team was assembled, but no ball game was played. Not a single point scored, yet everyone stayed to see the trophy and Danny, and hear Batesy raise hell, and to finally see that banner unveiled. When I saw it again, I realized what we've got, and it filled me with joy. 10 times Lindsey Scott. I decided right there that we'd summon our powers, and we'd work, and we'd sweat, and reclaim what was ours. We'd draw strength from our past and from our legacy, so I thank that old fat man for helping me see that the swamp was our gift. We've no need for his toys. We got 85,000 singing "We're the Boys." His work here was finished, so he fired up his sleigh and he pointed it north and then flew away. And as he disappeared in that polar direction, I heard a pair of old hush puppies running section to section. See, the work had begun to set everything right. So Merry Christmas to all, and to all, good night.